And hello and welcome back to our show. This is the show called Nye County, where people from Nye County can call in and we discuss topics of concern both on the global and local scale, but all of which either directly or indirectly concern the people here in the county of Nye. I'm your host, Tom Gibson, and this is my co-host, Chuck Augustin, and we're here to discuss, among other things tonight, is the criminal justice system and the court system here in Nye County, which would equate to the same rules basically as in anywhere in this state.
Yeah, first of all, let me give a little update on the commissioners' meeting today. I wasn't there for long, but one of to me, the major things that was addressed, and I can't say that this is the way it's going to be, but it was determined that the speed limits in Pahrump should only be either 25 miles an hour on gravel roads or 45 miles an hour on paved roads. Now that doesn't include, anything where, like 160, which is a state highway, or schools where mandated speeds are by the federal government or state government.
Like within the town limits.
Right. And only the so-called town roads or county roads. So it was addressed, or it was discussed, if notification shouldn't be made to the prosecutors, to the judges, and certainly to the police, and that they won't be pulling people over in a what should be a 45-mile-an-hour zone, but is posted as 35. Of course, they talked about changing the speed signs, and just to show you how absurd government is and how crazy everything is for us taxpayers, is it was estimated by, I think they're called the Roads Division or whatever, the guys that deal with this stuff, that it would cost something on the order of $600,000 to change the 35-mile-an-hour posted speeds to what they, either 25 or 45. So that to me was enough to make me leave the commissioners meeting and go to Walmart. Another thing I'd like to say before we get on the court thing is for the longest time I've admired Mr. Bob Wanberg, who's an animal rights advocate. And I'm a dog lover, animal lover, in fact, of any kind except snakes or black widows.
Those are arachnids.
Yeah. And anyway, I just can't say how much I think of Mr. Wanberg and everyone else that supports the rights of animals, whether they're abused, neglected, or whatever. And I think they do a great job, and Mr. Wanberg in particular. So let's go to the courts.
Let's go there.
Okay, where I'd like to start off is kind of where I started off and where a lot of other people start off. And that is, you have an issue. Whether it be with your neighbors, as was my case, with your loved ones, your wife, your children, or whatever, and you decide at some point that you're going to call or report this incident to the police or situation to the police. And that more or less elevates everything. And Tom, you were saying before we went on air, in a perfect way, I thought, just why you should think very hard before you pick up that phone or get in the car and go over to the police to make a complaint.
Right, because once you involve the state, whether it be the police or sheriffs or the court system, once they're invited into your life, or you invite them into your life, they are empowered over you. And that empowerment, I mean, there's a general empowerment anyway, just by living in the society. But you make that phone call to the police, and to say it was like you have a drunk girlfriend that's over at your house, and you want her out of there, and she won't leave. If you call the police, one of two things is going to happen: either someone's going to get arrested, or the police are going to escort the person out of there. But if they escort the person out of there, it's not going to be according to your will. It's not going to be, okay, could you give her a ride home? Could you just get her out of here? Here's a couple bucks for a cab. if there's any sign of domestic violence, the law enforcement is under an obligation to, they usually do a very quick investigation, and they flip a coin, decide they got to take somebody to jail, and they look for marks on the person, they look for any type of bruises, scratches, and if that is on someone, that is an indicator that the other person is guilty of domestic violence, and the other person will be carted off to jail. Now, that said, in a domestic violence situation, there are many times when a person is defending themselves, or the scratch might have come from another situation. I did a trial, and I won the trial at the justice court level, and the client, my client's wife wanted him out of the house. So she, because he was drunk and belligerent, she called her friend, her sister. Her sister said, there's only one way to get him out of the house, and that's if you call the police and tell the police he's being violent to you. And then after you get him out, then you can go drop the charges. That's what she was told. So the police showed up at my client's house. He had already left, and she had a black eye. So that's what they used as evidence of this domestic violence. Well, she testified and brought in medical reports at the trial that the black eye was received a week before. Mm-hmm. She slipped and fell over at one of the casinos and hit her eye on a table. And so we had these reports that we used in evidence, also, which helped. Also, the cop didn't put in his report. And I like a cop. He's a good guy. And I'm not going to mention his name, but I like him. But a new cop, you got to take him out and teach him the way around the block before they actually learn this stuff. But his police report was like scant. And I picked it up and I walked over to him and I go, "What is this?" And he said, "It's my report." And I go, "You call it a report?" And he said, "Yes." And I go, "Okay. And how long is it?" And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "How long? How many paragraphs?" He goes, 3 paragraphs. And I go, "Well, it's more like 3 sentences, right?" And he goes, "Well, I consider those paragraphs." Then I walked him through and I said, "Where on here in your report does it say that the victim admitted to you that there was no violence and nothing happened?" It doesn't. Okay. And where on here does it say where my client, when you found him and arrested him, denied hurting or hitting his wife? It doesn't. But they both told you that. Well, yes. Don't you think that's important to put in your report? Don't you think that the DA might want to know that before they charge a lame case like this? What about, don't you think the defense attorneys look at this stuff and we plan our defenses around the reports that you generate? And he goes, "Look, I'm just trying to get convictions." Ooh. So.
And that's, to me, a key thing. One thing I'll say absolutely, from the minute you do decide to involve the police, you better start documentation. In my case, I went to the police station because of my neighbors trespassing and stealing golf balls. And I made the report. I went for an interview that lasted maybe 30 minutes in the back room. I assume it was videotaped. And lo and behold, 3 weeks later, when the neighbors got mad at me and called the police saying I was bombarding them with golf balls, that report and that interview disappeared. And all the way through my ordeal to the preliminary trial, which we'll get to, there was no evidence that I had even gone to the police and made the report. By the way, we're holding calls for the first 2 segments at least. So let's move on. Okay, the police come to your house. Should you even talk to the police?
Well, if
you're the accused.
If you're the accused, silence is a friend that will not betray you. And as they say, anything you say can and will be used against you. And I will go one further. I know certain law enforcement agents and officials that will take it a step further, and you don't have to say anything. They'll put words in your mouth regardless of what you say. So the less said, obviously, the better. And as Chuck was saying, if you can keep a recording going, because that's what a lot of the cops do, especially the detectives, they always have their, and one in particular, he never goes anywhere without having his little sneaky recording device on, and he records things selectively, and then when it gets to court, or when the materials are turned over, he has these things, and it's used against the client or the defendant. But when the defendant is being interviewed, and he's not a defendant at the point, he's be the accused or a suspect, then people, if they don't think they're being recorded or don't know they're being recorded, they have a tendency to let their mouths run, and it's not that they're lying, they get nervous and they get what I call diarrhea of the mouth, and they just go on and on, and they end up crapping on themselves. That's why I get the
and you're emotional. I had a tremendously bad heart, one of these epic things that are in the cardiac journals. And when the cop came and basically said to me, "Why are you hitting golf balls at your neighbors?" That was the first words out of her mouth. My stress level started going up. Of course you start getting mad when you're totally innocent. You know these people that have been abusing you for 5 years called the cops on you when you did absolutely nothing.
And then the thing is she doesn't come there and say, "Look, we have a report of somebody hitting golf balls in this house. What do you know about it?" It's, aren't you in ISIS?
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, and that's it. You're put under the gun. The minute they make the determination, they want you charged. And to me, anything I said would have been used against me.
So if you find a need to call the police for whatever reason, think very carefully before you make the call. Even write yourself a little list or outline to follow so you make sure that you stay on point. And be very specific, because again, once you empower the police, you lose control over it. And then we'll get into this next segment, but say you don't charge people, and you say, "I want to drop the charges." It's not up to you. Okay, the cops don't charge people. The cops arrest people on charges that they're recommending. The DA, or the prosecutor in the federal system, is the one that makes charges the accused, which creates them to be a defendant instead of an accused. So anyway, we just to let you know, you need to be very, very, again, careful what you say and how you say things, because they're not there to make friends with you. We got to go on break here, and we'll be back after this commercial break, and we'll continue this.